Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Rabbi Shibboleth podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, all of you. Uh, some technical difficulties here. Let me see if this is working. Why is this not showing anything? Okay, I see why, okay, that's better. Hi, everyone. Okay, I gotta fix this up a little bit, make it a little bit higher. Let me see how I'm going to do that. Okay, great. So welcome everyone, and it's so good to have you back with me. I'm very glad that you're joining us. Look what I wrote uh, as a description, what I wanted to talk about today. What to tell your children about the coronavirus and how to lead a family in a time of crisis. More than anything that is on my mind right now is how I lead my family, meaning how I keep my family safe, obviously, how I pay the family's bills, obviously. The health issues and financial issues are at the forefront. And they kind of have to be. You got to keep the lights on. You got to feed your family. So many people are struggling right now, and it creates a lot of fear. And more important than that, of course, is the health issue, making sure that you're healthy and not being around people who are sick and not, God forbid, spreading sickness. So the social distancing thing. Okay, but then beyond that, there's psychological health and emotional health, and all of us are called upon to be leaders. Now, if you're watching this and you're a parent, you are a leader. Your kids are much more interested in what you have to say about the virus than President Trump or Governor Cuomo, no matter how good a job they're doing on a national or a state level or mayors on a local level. It's not them who your kids are primarily looking at. They're looking to you. They're looking to see how you are weathering this crisis. And I want you all to know this crisis is going to pass. We all know it's going to pass. And let's, we pray that it'll pass much more quickly than is currently anticipated. Here in New Jersey, they're anticipating that the peak will be, God Almighty, the end of April. We've already been in semi-lockdown here in our house almost 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Incredible. And it could be another 4 weeks, could be another 8 weeks. God willing, it'll be a lot less. But this will pass. This too shall pass, this will pass. And then the question's going to be, most importantly, did you come through it healthy? Did you come through it financially? But the question is going to be, how did you come through this crisis? How did you weather this storm? Did you show leadership? And this is on my mind all the time in terms of being even keeled around my kids. That's on my mind. Giving them faith and hope. That's on my mind. Studying Torah every night. So many families are rediscovering the pleasures of family dinners. We have family dinner now every single night. We used to have it every single night when our kids grew up. Now we have 3 kids that are at home usually. Now, thank God, almost all of our kids are at home during the crisis. But usually we have 3 kids at home. And it's been harder to have regular family dinners with our 3 youngest children than it was with their 6 older siblings, because they were kind of in 2 groups. 6 of them were in one group, and then the 3 youngest ones are in a second group. But now we're having family dinners every night, and I tell my children, like, I have 3 conditions during this crisis. Beyond, I mean, of course, the health things. Don't do anything stupid. Don't not practice social distancing, etc. But I have 3 essential rules. Number 1, we have to have family dinners together. Number 2, we study Torah together. And if you're a Christian family, you can read the Bible. Gosh, if you're a secular family, you can read one of the classics, but just discuss something that isn't coronavirus related. And the third rule is that everybody has to help. First of all, there's so much more work because everyone's in the house the entire day. So we've divided responsibilities in the house into different groups, and everybody has a different responsibility. So my responsibility is to supervise. That's the best responsibility. But one of the kids has to do the dishes. And if it's more serious responsibilities, we switch them every 3 days. So every half a week. But firstly, gosh, Ted, I'm looking at what my friend Ted is watching. I'll get to some of your comments. So some of the kids have dishwashing responsibilities. Some of them have sweeping and cleaning responsibilities. Because I don't want my wife getting too tired, and I don't want to get too tired. It's very important that parents be strong and healthy right now, and of course the kids as well. But the kids have to help. So there's 3 rules we have in the house. Gotta have family dinner together, everyone. We have to study Torah together, which is usually done right after family dinner. And number three, everybody has to help. But I'm really thinking to myself, my kids are always watching me. That if money issues are on my mind, I can discuss them in general terms with my kids, meaning I can tell them that these are tough times economically, that a lot of people have lost their jobs, and therefore we have to be extra careful not to waste. I can say to them, make sure you turn off the lights in your bedroom when you walk out, even if you think you're going to go back in an hour. It only takes a second to turn it off. Don't waste any food. We have to be so grateful for food right now. And I'm not only talking about an abundance of food and plenty, I'm even talking about the distribution channels. Because remember when the crisis first started, you couldn't buy any food because everyone was hoarding it. Now, thank God, the shelves are becoming replenished, and that's been one of the blessings that we've all seen here in America, and I hope it's happening around the world, that the food distribution channels have not been disrupted. And God Almighty, look at the heroes who are driving the trucks and stocking the shelves, and there's so many heroes right now. But so the first thing is this. Let's go through some of the rules. Should you talk to your kids about financial pressures? And the answer is, in general, don't be specific. Don't talk specifically about financial issues. Don't say, we only have this much money left, or I may lose my job, or because that's just going to frighten them, and they're going to panic. And what we don't want is, God willing, all of us will come through this crisis healthy, but you don't want to leave deep psychological scarring. You don't want to leave deep emotional scarring. So you could talk in general. You could say to your kids, this is a time of crisis. The world is in crisis. More than 3 million Americans have lost their jobs. Probably in Israel, they say 25% of the workforce is out. And soon we might see similar numbers in the US. So we tell our kids, this is a time not to waste. This is a time don't take food you're not going to eat. And we should all be eating healthier now. Here's a great time for us to impress upon our kids the need to eat healthy and to be healthy. But I don't believe in speaking about specific financial pressures, but I do think we can speak overall about the need to tighten our belts, the need to avoid waste, and the need for everyone to pitch in around the house so that there can be cost savings because kids are actually doing some of the chores that we would otherwise have to hire someone to do. One of the showers got clogged here the other day, and my two sons were trying their best to unclog it. Normally, we'd call a plumber. First of all, I don't even know if a plumber's going to come right now. Secondly, you have to be careful about who's coming into your home, just in terms of making sure that all of us are safe. And, I wish that it would be fine to have plumbers right now, because people have to have jobs as well, and there's an economy, one person dependent on the other, but that's not the case right now. So two of my sons tried to fix it. As it happened, they only fixed it partially, but that was enough. That was enough. So that's the financial thing. Then the question is, what about all the terrible news? Even more serious than the financial issues. What about all the terrible news about people dying? Just before I started this Facebook Live and this podcast, I don't even know the name of the band. Can someone write the name of the? It's a very terrible story. A 52-year-old singer died. Can someone tell me what his name is? I don't know the name of the band. I think I know one of his songs. Is he the one that did the song about the kid who has a crush on his best friend's mom? How does that go? Because that's what I heard on the news. 52 years old, and that's shocking. And my heart goes out to his family and his loved ones, and may God comfort them. 52 years old. Now, that's about my age, and that's kind of scary. And so the question is, do you tell your kids about these things? To be honest, I sat down at the dinner table tonight, and I mentioned this to my kids, and I think it was a big mistake, because it was the last thing I should start dinner with. I was kind of trying to say to them that, wow, that's sad, that this person who brought joy to people's lives and wrote songs and sang songs. But the kids are not ready for that. So to what extent should we expose our children to the terrible news? And to what extent should we ourselves be exposed to this terrible news? So my belief is that you have to take the news. You want to watch the evening news. That's important. You want to read a few websites. That's important. But the moment you become addicted to the news from morning, night till night, and believe me, this is something that I have to fight because I'm involved in news. I write, I comment, I react to news. But the news is so negative, it's so bad, that it becomes its own form of psychosis. And let's face it, there is an interest on the part of the media to addict you to negative news, because that's what's going to make you come back. If there's an apocalypse going on, if we're all going to die, God forbid, then you're going to want to know exactly how many people are dying and when we're going to die, God forbid. So the media, which makes their money through eyeballs and makes their money through listeners, there's a vested interest. They have a vested interest in telling us only the worst news. And we can't expose our kids to that. And I have to tell you, I want to be honest with you about my own struggles. I'm kind of struggling with how to filter that news down to my younger children so that they don't only panic. So it's all about balance. Should kids know that this is a very tough time in the world? Absolutely. They're going to know anyway. Should kids know that people are dying? Yes, they're going to know anyway. But they should also know that, thank God, 99% of the people who get COVID-19 survive, thank God. They should know that older people are more at risk, so that they're extremely careful on whether or not they spread this, and why some of them need to know why they can't see their grandparents at this time, and why they're not going to see their grandparents even at the Passover Seder next week. That's important. But to give your children a constant river of pain, a constant stream of negativity, that's going to damage them psychologically. There is a blessing in the fact that so many of the schools have continued to function with online, because it gives the kids a semblance of normalcy. How much are the kids actually learning through all this online school stuff? I don't know. I mean, the other day, we had a parent-teacher evening that was done kind of like this through Zoom. And I was asking the teachers, can you give me an honest assessment of information intake on the part of their students, whether they think it's actually successful now, and I don't know. But I'll tell you something. Maybe the more important thing actually is for kids to feel that there's a semblance of normalcy, because we don't want our kids being psychologically scarred. This is a once in a century occurrence, thank God. Hopefully, modern science and medicine will make it a once in a millennium occurrence, or maybe never again. In the same way we said about genocides, never again, I hope that this pandemic is never again, although this, of course, is a very big difference, because the never again of the Holocaust and the genocide was about moral choice and human beings not slaughtering each other, and the coronavirus is different because there's no moral agency on the part of a pathogen. But hopefully it is never again. But you're talking about a once in a century occurrence. Something like this, thank God, hasn't happened to the world since about 1918 and the Spanish flu. So our kids know that they're going through something historic, but we have to give them a semblance of normalcy to the extent possible, and still laugh at the dinner table. This is why family dinners are so important. Still laugh at the family. Our kids, we have a WhatsApp group, and the kids post, a lot of fun things and funny things, and then I end up being the one who's posting more serious things. I saw an article yesterday, for example, in the New York Times that said that, wow, OCD might finally have its usefulness, because we go to therapy to get rid of OCD, but now the constant hand washing becomes almost like OCD. And I think it said something like people who are OCD are even cleaner and healthier as a result. Anyway, it was interesting. So I put out that on the kids group, but you can imagine, and I'm often posting things very late, when my kids wake up first thing in the morning, that's what they're going to read. Tati putting up more stuff about the coronavirus. So I try to post things that are helpful to them in staying healthy, and helpful to them in mind, body, and spirit. But even then, I have to be careful not to make it all coronavirus all the time. You really cannot do that. You have to ensure that doesn't happen. Finally, so I spoke about the financial pressures and to what extent we expose our children. I spoke about the deaths and all the horror, and to what extent we expose our children. Finally, let's be positive. To what extent do we expose our children to positive things? To things that we may not get around to. Like I said, Torah study, Bible study, family dinners. That's what's so important right now. It's to balance everything that's happening in the world with all of these things that unite a family and bring it closer together, that we may never have the opportunity to do so again. This plague should be purged from the world. Who the heck wants this disgusting, vile plague? I hope it disappears forever. But you can redeem it. You can redeem it. You can bring some light to what's going on by focusing on things that otherwise would never happen. You see my kids running back and forth. But this is a time for leadership, and not just on a global level. Of course, we want President Trump to lead, Governor Cuomo, my friend Mayor Eric Garcetti of Los Angeles, they have to lead. But what about you? What about you leading? What about you uplifting your children? What about you giving your children faith? What about you giving your children hope? What about spending your nights with family dinners, or reading your children bedtime stories, or actually listening to your kids so much more attentively, and putting away your phone? I have a rule, even though only on the Jewish Sabbath we're not allowed phones, and I've instituted that rule now every night at family dinners. There are no phones at our table. There wasn't any tonight, and it's a weeknight, not last night, and it was a weeknight, and of course it won't be on Friday night, which is the Sabbath. So I want to read some of your comments. If you have any questions about being a leader in the home and parenting our kids right now, tell me. First of all, to my buddy Ted, how are you, Ted? When you have a terrible headache, learn Torah. Ted, I hope you don't have a headache. But you should learn Torah even when you don't have a headache. David Wood, you look like you're going a little bit stir crazy, Rabbi. Not really, thank God. I'm trying to process everything that's going on. And like I said, as I process all of that, how many things are we processing right now? Let's just understand. The human mind is not necessarily built, and the human heart is not necessarily built to process this much negative information. You wake up in the morning and the death count has gone up. You wake up in the morning, the infection rate has gone up. You wake up in the morning and your city has, God forbid, become a hot zone. And then you wake up in the morning and you hear personal stories of people you know who are fighting for their lives. And I hear those stories because people call me. They want prayers said for those people. They want to know if there are doctors who might be able to help. They want to know if there's any connections to medicines and pharmaceuticals for experimental trials that might be given on compassionate, what's it called? Compassionate care, compassionate release. I hear all these horrible stories. So you're processing all this. And that's for strangers. This is when you hear a story about strangers, what's happening in your city, what's happening. But then there's your kids and your family. And as you go through the day, and then you're like punch drunk, because every time you open first of all, on my phone, I'm getting updates from the New York Times, I'm getting updates from CNN, I'm getting updates from Fox News, I'm getting updates from the Wall Street Journal, and boom, 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 and they're all you're punch drunk, and that's what I mean. And somehow you have to filter this all through. And I was telling one of my friends today that in an earlier age, I think it was so much easier. Well, let me take that back. I have no idea if it was easier. That was a silly comment. In an earlier age, let me fix this. In an earlier age, the way people dealt with this was a little bit different. They didn't have science, so they didn't know what a virus was. So you know what they did? It was all superstition. The Aztecs and the Incas, when they would see tons of their people dying and they couldn't explain it, they decided that the gods were angry, and why allow everyone to die if we give the gods one sacrifice, if we give the gods one virgin who has not known a man and therefore she's not defiled, and because virginity in almost every culture was always associated with innocence for some reason, but if we give the gods this thing, then they won't be angry anymore. And that's how they dealt with it. Okay, so even in cultures that were more advanced, that weren't as primitive, you still, if there was terrible sickness, you dealt with it superstitiously. God is angry, the gods are angry, and there wasn't a lot to process insofar as you felt utterly helpless. And remember that prior to the miracles of modern medicine, so many people were surrounded by death all the time. Kids died at such a high rate after birth. And so many pregnant women, newborn mothers, so many of them died at a crazy rate. And then, of course, when there were wars, look at the Civil War. You're talking about 550,000, Civil War, I think close to 700,000 Americans died, because if you would even be shot in the arm, unless they sawed it off real quick, infection would set in and you would die from blood poisoning. They were surrounded by so much death. Thank God today that's not the case. Thank God today we're a much more advanced society due to our faith and due to how that faith is translated into medical science and medical research and the miracle of modern medicine. So when something like this hits us, the coronavirus, and we just hear about death on a global scale, when we hear about 700-800 people dying every day in Italy, when we hear about how many was it in New York today? I think it was close to 400. Maybe in the United States was 400 in total, but New York was something like 200. How do you process all of that? And what I'm saying is we have to learn how to process it and still remain hopeful and still know this is still only a small percentage of the people who are contracting the virus. And thank God we're employing social distancing measures. And also the social distancing measures are beginning to work. So there has to be that balance. Let me see what other comments. To Vilma. Kids are always watching and listening to their parents. They're very astute. They watch our behavior more than our words. That is correct. By the way, there's a word for that. I think the word is mimetic. It's where children mime us. They copy us. So the mimetic parenting is even more powerful than verbal parenting. Children copying our example. Therefore, it is important to lead by example. Every opportunity for dialogue is good and connects us more. I love to hear my son laugh. That's great. How old is your son? Please tell me. We create our own ambience. Very well said. Gary Faber, Punchdrunk is such a good description. I feel beaten up at times with the constant information. Yeah, it's like the news beats you up. It's like they take a cultural, you know, this guy died, well, get ready, someone else died, boom. And New York is a hot zone, well, get ready, Mardi Gras, spread it everywhere too. So, you know, and you just hit this person and hit that person, and you begin to get punch drunk after a while. Yeah, so I also think it's a decent description. Margaret, our children copy our behavior. That is absolutely correct. Let me see. Ted, you say that we should tell our children the truth. Yeah, of course. You never lie to children. You never lie to children. But the question is, how much truth? What is the truth that you tell your kids? How much truth? That's the essential question. You should, and the general rule in life is you never lie, but that doesn't mean you have to say the whole truth. So if your kids are asking you, is coronavirus really bad? Or a lot of people suffering? You say, yeah, a lot of people are suffering, but you could immediately say, but there are so many people who have come through it. They're absolutely fine. Thank God. Look at Prince Charles. It was so nice to see. 71 years old. And he did a video today, and he said he's on the other side of the illness now, thank God, and he's fine. And he's 71 years old, the heir to the British throne. I was so happy. I was happy for the British people. I was happy for the world because he's a global icon. And now Boris Johnson, who I knew a little bit in England. Boris Johnson was a writer for the Telegraph, and he profiled me. In the Telegraph. So I met him. Anyway, he's tested positive, and we hope that he's going to be okay, God willing. It looks like he's okay. So you tell your children the truth, but you should balance it with positive news. That's critical, that you balance it with positive news. And Lakota, we need to go back to work. As an older person, I do not want society to collapse because I'm at risk. Masks for everyone. Antibiotics in the way, so let's get back to work soon. Look, we all want to get back to work, Anne, but we also have to be really careful because we know what works and what doesn't work. Ignoring social distancing at spring break did not work. Ignoring social distancing at Mardi Gras did not work. The Orthodox Jewish communities ignoring social distancing and going to prayer services, it didn't work, even though we want to pray to God. Mega churches ignoring social distancing and having service, it did not work. So let's know what works and what does not work. So I agree with the government's guidelines. It's not time to go back to work yet. We have to give it a few weeks, and that expression, let's be apart now so we could all be together later. I think there's a lot of truth to that, and it may be painful. Finally, let me just say, as a Jew, the Jewish community has always been an example to the rest of the world insofar as we Jews really put emphasis on community. We don't pray. We pray in quorums of 10 or much larger, but a minimum quorum of 10. Our synagogues are strong, thank God. Our communal and social services are strong, and all of those things have sustained us through thousands of years of persecution. But actually, when it came to the coronavirus, it worked against us because our communities are so close, and we so hate separating because we so depend on each other, and there's deep love in the community. That when we needed to separate and not pray together, and not go to services together, and not go to each other's weddings, and God forbid, not even go to funerals or to shivas. There's so many people who are sitting Shiva completely alone. The whole idea of Shiva is to have the community ease the pain and the burden by being there for you. when it came time to do that separation, it didn't happen quickly enough, and then people got harmed. So it's antithetical to our instincts to be separate, but it's also kind of necessary. In any event, I hope that you are all safe, and God bless you. And I always really appreciate speaking to you guys at night. Any other questions write to me during the day. I'll try to speak to them in the evening, about them in the evening. And one more thing, if you have any good suggestions of topics that you want to hear me talk about, please tell me. You can email me, info@shmuley.com, or put it up on Facebook, info@shmuley.com. God bless you all and keep you safe. God bless you.